For years, people believed MASH was the perfect mix of humor, heartbreak, and raw humanity, a show where the cast seemed as close off-screen as they were in the 4077th. But beneath the laughter, tension was quietly building, and right in the middle of it all stood Gary Burghoff, the man the world knew as the sweet, gentle Radar O'Reilly. So how did someone with such a warm, innocent face become the person some cast members quietly resented? The truth, as it turns out, is more complicated than fans ever imagined, and it reveals just how heavy fame and creative pressure can become when you're trapped in a role that no longer fits. From unknown actor to icon, Gary's connection to Radar didn't begin with the TV series. It began with the original MASH film in 1970 when director Robert Altman was casting the movie. Altman chose Gary, a 26-year-old stage actor and jazz drummer from Connecticut, to play the young clerk Walter Radar O'Reilly. At the time, Gary was just a struggling actor trying to get noticed, and Altman saw something in him that others might have missed, a natural innocence that could cut through the chaos of war like a light through smoke. Gary played Radar with shy movements and a soft presence that immediately touched audiences, even though he had limited screen time. He became the quiet, emotional anchor in Altman's sharp, cynical take on war, and 2 years later, when CBS turned the film into a weekly series, Gary was the only actor from the movie the network begged to bring back. The fear of being watered down. Gary was flattered, but also nervous. The movie was bold and rebellious, while television in the early 1970s had strict rules and heavy censorship. He worried Radar would be reduced to a simple sitcom character, stripped of the emotional depth that made him memorable. But the opportunity to expand Radar's character, give him real growth and complexity, pulled him back in. When the show debuted on September 17, 1972, it didn't explode immediately, but it quietly changed American TV forever. Even though it was set in Korea, audiences knew it was speaking directly to the tension of the Vietnam era, and they felt it deeply. In the middle of all that emotion was Radar, the soft-spoken clerk who somehow managed to keep his innocence while the world around him was filled with chaos, blood, and bureaucracy. The heart of the 4077th. By the second season, critics called Radar the heart of the 4077th, and fans from around the world flooded him with letters, treating him like the soul of the show. Viewers fell in love with his stuttered "sir," his shy stance, and the teddy bear he carried like a part of his soul. What fans didn't know was that many of these quirks, the bear, the nervous habits, the tender moments, came from Gary's instincts. They weren't written, they were felt. But as Radar's popularity grew, so did the pressure. While other characters were allowed to evolve into complex adults, Gary was told to remain the same innocent kid forever. Producers wanted that purity locked in place, and the audience demanded it every week. That pressure became a heavy burden, and Gary, a perfectionist, began to carry every critique and every scene that felt wrong as if it were his own failure. He was trapped in a role that no longer felt like his. When the role becomes a cage. The show gradually shifted from comedy to deeper emotional storytelling, and Gary felt that shift more than anyone. He was expected to maintain the show's innocence while everyone else got to release tension through humor or sarcasm. He didn't have that outlet, and the sadness of each episode started to cling to him. The line between Gary and Radar began to blur, and even off camera, he grew quiet and withdrawn, trying to find balance in a world that kept pulling him apart. On screen, he still delivered powerful performances filled with real vulnerability, but a lot of it was simply Gary running on fumes. By the middle seasons, the strain was written all over him. The role that once felt like a blessing had turned into a heavy load he couldn't shake, and the innocence fans adored was draining him in real life. Friction behind the laughs. The first sign of conflict appeared between Gary and Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John. On screen, their chemistry was electric, Trapper's sharp wit bouncing off Radar's nervous sincerity. But off-screen, the long 14-hour days and constant pressure took a toll. Wayne was disciplined, always hitting his marks like a machine. Gary was emotional and intuitive, often questioning lines or asking for extra takes until the moment felt right. At first, Wayne respected this, but eventually the delays cost time and money, and patience wore thin. According to accounts in Raymond Straight's biography of Alan Alda, the tension grew until one day Wayne snapped and smashed a chair on set. The room froze, production shut down, and though both men returned the next day professionally, the distance between them never fully healed. Wayne left after season 3, officially over contract issues, but insiders knew the constant strain had worn him down. A cast living on edge. Even MASH's gentle Colonel Henry Blake struggled to keep the peace. He later admitted that their dynamic shifted between friendly laughter and quiet frustration, and Gary's sensitive nature clashed with Stevenson's easy improvisation. Small comments became big emotions, and misunderstandings could ruin an afternoon. Still, Stevenson respected Gary's talent and admitted he made Radar feel real. The tension was there, but so was the respect. As the show evolved and Alan Alda took greater creative control, Gary felt even more stuck. Radar couldn't grow, and when he suggested deeper development, Alda rejected the idea to preserve the show's balance. To Gary, it felt personal. To Alda, it was simply protecting the series. Either way, the admiration between them faded under pressure. The breaking point. By season 7, Gary reached his breaking point. He was burned out, his marriage was strained, and the constant grind of long shoots and promotional obligations had taken a toll. He told producers he was leaving, but they begged him to stay long enough for a proper farewell. Writers crafted a 2-part episode, Goodbye Radar, but the final scene became a battlefield of ideas. Director Charles S. Dubin wanted Radar to leave quietly, without fanfare. Gary wanted a dramatic emotional breakdown, tears and all. The clash was intense, and when Gary finally broke down on camera, it looked forced and theatrical. He later admitted the scene was wrong and begged for another chance. Dubin agreed, but with one rule: no tears. In the final cut, Radar simply walks away while the camp continues its work, a quiet, haunting goodbye that became one of the most unforgettable moments in the show's history. The aftermath and the real story. When the episode aired in October 1979, fans cried, critics praised it, and tabloids spun rumors about Gary being difficult and moody. But the truth was simpler and more human. He was exhausted and needed his life back. The MASH schedule demanded 10 months of the year, and Gary was missing time with his wife and 2 children. He once said that audiences assume you must be the person they see on screen, but Radar was a better person than he could ever be. Carrying that pure image off camera wore him down more than anyone knew. His co-stars, though, understood more than the tabloids suggested. Jamie Farr said he tried to talk Gary out of leaving but couldn't. Loretta Sweet remembered how he slowly drifted away from the group, and even Alan Alda later expressed warmth and respect, acknowledging Gary's role as the show's emotional heart. A quiet legacy. After MASH, Gary stepped away from the spotlight, choosing a life far from Hollywood's grind. He did a few guest roles, some theater, voice acting, and even wildlife painting, but he stayed grounded. He didn't chase fame. He sought peace. Years later, fans saw another side of him when he helped raise money for wildfire victims, showing the same gentle spirit that made Radar unforgettable. Gary's sensitivity, the trait that made his performance so powerful, also made the industry overwhelming. He admitted that giving too much of yourself can leave you empty when the cameras stop. His legacy today isn't one of conflict. It's one of quiet kindness and emotional truth. The real question. When fans watch MASH now, they don't think about the behind-the-scenes tension. They see Radar, the soft-spoken clerk with a teddy bear, reminding everyone that kindness still matters, even in the darkest times. Gary Burghoff's story is not one of ego or rivalry. It's the story of a man who carried a beloved character so deeply that it eventually cost him his peace. He didn't leave because he was difficult. He left because he was human. And that's why Radar still feels so real, so timeless, and so deeply loved.